Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting guest, Etay with LayerJot. For those of you just joining the podcast, I am Christian Gannon, the co-founder of E.N.G Media, and we specialize in helping software and tech companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your software tech business to the next level, make sure to stick around. So let's get right into it. I understand that LayerJot helps professionals or healthcare professionals enhance focus and accuracy during critical manual tasks using computer vision and AI. The platform supports identifying, counting, and inspecting surgical instruments by providing real-time spatial understanding through mobile AR and edge devices. By extending human capabilities and reducing errors, LayerJot empowers teams to work more precisely and efficiently in high-stakes environments. Can you share a little bit more about your businesses, the services you offer, and your role within it?
Yeah, and thank you, Christian, for having me. Yeah, so LayerJot, we are focusing on surgical logistics, which is an interesting name for everything that happened in the hospital that you probably did not notice. Anything around preparation for surgical procedures, preparing surgical instruments, preparing trays and all kind of kits, and making sure that the surgeon have what they need in the right condition when they need that for the procedure itself. And then cleaning it up, maintaining it's a never-ending cycle. And yeah, what we provide is things that fall into the category of knowledge transfer, accurate information to the workforce, supporting workflows like tray assembly and other things that are done in the sterilization department, and optimization of which instrument needs to be in the OR or used in the OR, which allow to drive costs down and patient outcome up.
Gotcha, of course. And thank you so much for sharing. And actually, before we hopped on the podcast, I was looking at your LinkedIn and I saw at a recent event that you were demonstrating the OR.Stat, correct?
Yeah.
And that looks super cool. And I think I don't want to derail us too much because I know we'll come back to it, but just a sneak peek of what we'll talk about later because I'm sure we'll dive into it. Um, but kind of going back to the questions, how did the idea for LayerJot come about and what gap in the market were you really trying to solve when you built it?
Yeah, so I started LayerJot with Soren Harner, my co-founder and partner, and we're coming from a technology, the side of the family, not necessarily healthcare. And we were looking at opportunities to help people do their job better, enrich their days with information that is relevant for their task, and really take off the stress and the load, especially cognitive load, from the workforce that is dealing with large catalogs or things that cannot be memorized or take a lot of time for training. So we went through different industries, but the main thing around LayerJot, which explained the name as well, is we envisioning how we are layering information on top of the physical world. So we're layering jots of information and helping the workforce. So our philosophy is around the notion of guide and verify, which means we would like to guide the person to do the job and then be able to verify that was done correctly. And if you're looking around, across history, the best way to get your job done correctly is having a mentor, someone that you work with. And then as things scaled up, documentation showed up, and no one was reading the manual, so people start to do training, and then that's kind of fading away. So they said, how are we going to verify? Let's do checklist. And today's many of the things that you do in industrial settings or even in the hospitals is run by checklist. You need to make sure you did everything correctly. So guide and verify is kind of the next generation of this type of instruction-led scenarios with verification, which will lead in the future to automation and using of robotics and other things to take the boring stuff, the boring task from humans and just automate them. But that's kind of down the road. And as for why we chose this medical, we wanted to work in a domain that is very complex, that has a lot of moving parts, and that has a lot of challenges with the current workforce. But on the same time, something that is not going to be as obvious for the big players to step in and just, claim that they can provide a solution. So we have all these huge companies who spend a lot of time training models in the beginning to, recognize different kinds of breeds of dogs, right? So we are not in the dog business. We are in a business where surgical instruments look alike. They're very similar in many ways, but they are very different in function. This is an area that is not easy to get into, and the moat that we built around the ability to identify surgical instruments and different supply is unique and it's defendable. So that's kind of one of the reasons we chose technically. From a good karma perspective, we want to be in the industry that has positive impact on people's life. And in this case, we have positive impact on the workforce, but also positive impacts on the patients that are using their services.
Of course. And thank you so much for sharing. And I did want to touch on something you said or you mentioned was the guide and verify. I think not only in healthcare is this kind of that transition happening, I think it's happening in a lot of other areas. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree. And I think this is happening now in industrial settings. There are very great companies who are providing guide and verify using projectors and other technologies for the workforce to work with it using computer vision. You have a lot of tricks and stuff on the phones when you can measure things using your phone and getting feedback. All of that is really great. In LayerJot, one of the things we try to do is to solve the non-obvious thing when you're working with people in a messy environment and not in an industrial environment, but also working in high-stressed environments. So it's not something that if you measure the wall for a contract work and it's plus minus an inch, it may not be an issue. But if you chose a surgical instrument that is half an inch different than the other one, that's an issue. So there is a lot of guide and verify going on, but we haven't seen someone that is applying it to the space that we've been working at.
Of course. And kind of diving more into that space, what kind of trends are you seeing in the healthcare tech space right now, aside from LayerJot?
Yeah, so we see many interesting things. First of all, big companies are stepping in back into healthcare. There's kind of this dance of stepping in, buying some companies, stepping out, Google, Oracle, some other companies. Most of these companies are looking for the opportunities around data, around the messiness of information in the healthcare, digitizing records for the VA, and there is a lot of opportunities around data. One of the key challenges is the lack of standardization in medical records, in many of the things around logistics. And from our perspective, a lot of that movements and using of AI in the clinical side is great, but it's overlooking the workforce that is currently supporting this whole system. So just kind of to drop some numbers, like in the US, there is about 50 million surgical procedures a year done in over 70,000 operating room or procedure rooms in over 15,000 facilities. And all of that is supported by a community of about 100,000 surgical techs and sterilization technicians and many nurses. But it's a very small community. And if you are a big company trying to provide a solution and solve something, you are not going to address the problem of 500,000, users, because people are measuring things in users, big companies measuring by users. So it's an interesting way to see how a lot of the things that we take for granted, that you go to the office, the doctor office, the dentist, and all the instruments are ready. We don't know how that happened. It's a black magic for us, right? It just happened. But behind the scene, there is an amazing community of dedicated people working with not a lot of resources, usually in the basement of these facilities, and they are kind of providing all of these important services, but it's just an invisible community of amazing workers, and big tech is not looking that way, that direction. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know you mentioned at first too about the data in healthcare and how that's becoming a big priority across the board. And I've had a couple people on the podcast involved in that, and some on the revenue cycle management side, and then some on like PHI, like personal health information. And there's just a lot of talk about that, especially with HIPAA laws, and then if you want to be SOC 2 compliant. So there's a lot of that trending in the space right now, and especially with tech, healthcare has been notorious for having lower adoption rates or slower adoption rates, like just because it's an advanced industry, and maybe not for everything, but at least in tech, when it comes to data and privacy, it takes a while for AI to come into place there and such. But
yeah, you're describing my life. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of comments on that. Adoption is very slow. We got to the point where we know facilities that still have on-premise system that's running on top of MS Access. And I don't I don't remember the last time I opened that software.
Of course.
It's been a while. We have a shift. Cloud computing is still new to many of these facilities, and they have amazing people in the IT department, but again, they are understaffed, and they need to maintain all of these legacy systems that are just hard to maintain and patch and all of that. And when you come and you say we're using AI, and this is a term that is overused dramatically across everywhere these days, they get confused and they get defensive, and they don't have the protocol, and no one wants to have a ransomware or some other things that happen to their facility. So they are very, very careful with adoption of new technologies. So one of the things we are trying to do is to really educate IT departments about what are we doing, how are we doing it, like, for example, partnering with Google Cloud to have a HIPAA compliance kind of backend and other things that the big vendors are helping companies like us do. But on the other hand, healthcare, and you need to understand that there is no, like when we work with Europe, they have national healthcare system and you have one source to work with or one target. Here, there are so many different IDN, different hospital networks. And even within these hospital networks, each region may have different restrictions and standards and opinion on things. So it's really hard to go and say, I have a SaaS product, one size fits all. These are the IT requirements that I share and support. Use it. That's not the way it's going to go like that. On the other hand, if you're already supporting these hospitals and you are successful, then the churn is very slow. In order to replace you, someone else needs to come in and provide and do all the hard work you did in order to get there. My beard was red before I started working on healthcare, and look what the status of it now. Yeah. So it's a fascinating area. Has its own different logic and a different timetables. Yeah.
And I know we talked on it a little bit, but is there anything else in this kind of current landscape right now that's making it more challenging, or on the flip side, maybe easier to operate in?
So I think the generational shift of the workforce makes things easier. Let me go back to the sterilization departments. First of all, there is about 30% shortage or unfilled position in these departments. And then you have many people, about 20-25% of the workforce is about to retire. These people that have the 20 plus year experience. And then you have a lot of new people that has less than 2 to 5 years experience. And these guys are digital native. However, compensation-wise and stress-wise, the churn for these people in the workforce is high. And these are the most of the people in these type of departments. So when they come to the department and they say, hey, can I use my phone? Why are we using, digital tools? Why isn't that more like what I'm used to use at home? So this whole, not the notion of bring your own device, but the notion of, I would like to have a tool as good as what I'm using at home for these type of things. And this start to drive change because you have new managers that are younger, that are already digital native, and they're driving the change for new equipment and new technology in their departments.
That's awesome to hear, and it's very promising going into, like, I'm pretty young as well on my end, but it's promising to hear that future of healthcare, like maybe when I'm older, right, or if I have any complications down the line, that the workforce is adjusting to tech, but we just have to have the tech back end, right, and it become adopted in the long run.
Yeah.
But kind of switching a little bit, how are you? We're specialized in marketing, and we'd like to know how you are currently reaching out to new clients and how are you acquiring them, and especially in different verticals, like you said, you have the Europe region or the US region. How do you kind of get in front of those people?
That's a great question. So we try to do it from two directions. One direction is partners and channels. It's much easier to sell to organization through a partner that already have a relationship and contracting. And for that, we have partnered with very large companies that are leading the market in specific solution for healthcare, especially around tray assembly and stuff like that. This is a world of tracking system in healthcare, which is kind of where the source of truth of all the inventory and the workflow of sterilization is maintained. So our technology is embedded in one of the leaders' products. And we are working with other partners on different products that we can talk about later of what we do. But we also found that direct works, and it's not necessarily direct to the hospitals. We do direct to the workforce. So one of the things we did is we built the best catalog for a surgical instrument. We call it SID, Surgical Instrument Directory, and we made it free. So you can download it from the App Store, or you can use it on your web browser, and it has the most accurate information about surgical instruments, including high quality photos, access to IFU, which is information for use, checklist, and other things. And we did that because in one of my visits to this department, I met a traveler. A traveler is a technician that is not part of the organization. He's like a consultant. In this case, it's a he. There's many female consulting. And they come in and they need to assemble a surgical tray they have never seen before. And this specific guy just did not know what the instrument is, so he looked at the SKU. A SKU is a marking of it's not a serial number, it's just a part number on the metal device. And he Googled it, and he got the wrong answer from eBay. And he said, okay. And then he continued doing his work. And I was baffled that people have easy access to the wrong information. So we developed SID in order for the community to have access to the right information, and thousands of people are using our solution. And then we start rolling out computer vision capabilities. So today you can use your phone to identify the instruments, even without typing in anything. You just know what they are. So that really helped improving the knowledge transfer and information inside this department. And now when you go into a facility and say, I have a new product for you, like countsheet.ai, which is a count sheet management system, you may have already people in the organization that says, LayerJot, I'm using SID by LayerJot. So can I use it together? And you said yes. And then the discussion is much easier. So we seeded the market with valuable product that individual in the department use. And now when we're introducing products that are connected to it, we already have brand recognition, and we have the respect and the trust from people that are using it already in the department. And that's kind of a different way to drive access to these type of facilities.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's an awesome way to get in front of those people, right? By offering something that's free and valuable up front, and knowing on the back end that down the line when the adoption rates kind of speed up and people are looking for that product, they're coming to you first, right? Because you already put your foot in the door. So that's awesome. And kind of switching to the more personal side of things, what does your typical day-to-day look like as a founder?
Typically, it's going to be hard to explain because,
Of course,
as you know, it's you know how it's looking the calendar when you go to bed. You don't know exactly what you're going to wake up to. But yeah, I'm based in the West Coast, so my morning starts pretty early. We have development team in Europe, so a lot of calls with them, but also early mornings is meetings with East Coast with different facilities or groups. So I try to do it kind of 3 times a week, keeping at least 2 mornings a week for creative work. I am also responsible for the user experience, the product definitions, and working on the implementation. So for me, if I can have some quiet time in the morning to do some creative work, that's great. And then the necessary thing as a founder, making sure that you have enough money, taking care of admin, taking care of the workforce, your teammates, mentoring people across different challenges they may have, addressing, customers' issues, but also trying to keep up with the industry. There is a lot of noise right now, and you need to know what to say and what not to say, and you need to listen in. And I try to spend as much time as I can actually going to sterilization department and to hospitals, and really spend time with the people that I'm trying to help. Because from a product and a user experience perspective, which is my background, it's really important to be grounded in the real problems and not in high-level PowerPoint problems. Hospitals are full with technology that I call it kind of that would push to the side to the wall of shame. All these devices that are bought for a lot of money and then just pushed aside because no one is using it. So one of the key metrics for us is to make sure that we meet people that use our technology, that we hear from them first thing. So, going to events, presenting us like the HSPA event you mentioned, going to local chapters of different organizations, doing webinars. So I'm trying to educate and be educated about what are the key issues people have. If I can squeeze a 30 minutes power nap, that's a win. But, it's long days. So if you can get a power nap in the middle, that's great. And then in the evening is usually family time, of course, and trying to catch up with some of the latest and greatest in the industry.
Of course. And I'm right there with you. Sometimes I need a power nap too, so I don't blame you. But I think you touched on something that's really interesting and something that's kind of important across the board that you mentioned around being with the customer and understanding so that you don't go on to the wall of shame product, right? But I had someone on the podcast the other week that's in the supply chain sector, and he said the same thing. I spend 2 hours every morning literally just feeding myself information of what's going on in the industry, what's changed overnight. Because like you said, in a startup environment, things change from the time you went to bed to the time you get up. It might only be a couple hours, but it's always changing, especially in a lot of these spaces. And when you think about success today, what metrics really matter most to you and the LayerJot team right now?
Yeah, so utilization. So making sure that we build and people use something that is valuable for them. So that's important. We are getting to the phase where we can start measuring impact on the, hospital operation, cost and kind of throughput or revenue. And that's very important because then it helps convincing others to use the products that we have. And my personal key KPI, if I can get, is hugs. Because, at the last conference, we met people that came into the booth and just hugged us and say, you made something that I'm using every day and it's great. So it's not measurable by money, but you just know that you've been working with wonderful people and you build something that is valuable for them. And that's priceless.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great metric, tracked or untracked. It's a good reflection on how what you're doing as a company and who you're serving, right? And I know we kind of hinted about it a little bit in the beginning, but what's kind of next for LayerJot in the next 6 to 12 months? Are there any big products or features or launches on the roadmap?
Yeah, a lot of things. So, like I mentioned, we integrate with the leading tracking system that is in many facilities around the world, and it's mainly in the US. So that is rolling out in the next few months. We released Seed 4.0, the free product with the ability to take a photo of a count sheet, which is the list of instruments to prepare for a surgery, and then you get all the information about it. So we are connecting the physical world of paper, because it's still used, with the digital world of information. We released a new product called countsheet.ai, which allow people that don't have a tracking system to manage their count sheets and their list of work items in our system. Right now, there is about 2,000 facilities in the US that's still using paper or Word documents or Excel, and this is to replace it. And then rolling out what is kind of the end goal from our perspective is the OR.Stats solution. And OR.Stats is basically using our technology. We built with some partners like StrongArm and PTZ Optics, a cart you can roll into the OR, and then it has a camera that is a PTZ camera. So you focus it on what is called a Mayo stand, which is a little table or a tray that is next to the patient and the surgeon, where you place things there before you hand it to the surgeon. And we analyze using computer vision what was actually being used during the surgery compared to what was not used, just prepared. And the known secret is that between 30 to 70% of instruments that are prepared for surgery are not actually used in surgery. So that start to roll out, and that will give us the ability to drive decision based on data and no drama, and just focus on reducing the size of these trays. And the implications are as following. You spend less money to process them. You need to have small inventory, so it's already saving. The workforce doesn't need to work so hard because there's less instruments. they have more time to do inspections and to make sure the instruments are in the right condition. And the surgeons are going to get the surgical instruments in the right condition every time for what they need. So if we can shave these type of expenses and reduce the waiting time for bringing a missing instrument or a broken instrument, that improve OR minutes utilization, the revenue of the hospital, patient outcome, and the workforce shortage challenges. So OR.Stats is kind of the way to do it using technology. It's been done today manually, but these projects usually take 9 months, and with OR.Stats, you can do it within 3 months, half the cost. Wow. So we hope that will become something that every hospital will start rolling out to make sure they can really understand utilization of surgical instruments in their OR.
Definitely. And that makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot of leverage in that too. But also to add to that, I saw the video on LinkedIn and I thought it gave a great visual of exactly what it does, what it looks like, and how maybe someone outside the healthcare space, like me, I'm not a surgeon, I'm not associated with nurses. I have buddies that are, but more in the sense of I understand visually what's going on and maybe not at the depth that a surgeon might, but I get an idea of someone who's in an operating room and they don't have the tools they need, or there's too much space left on the tray when, like you said, that's a lot of money to go sanitize those trays after every surgery. And if you can reduce that, why wouldn't you? So,
yep.
Going into my last question, it's a tough one, but it's a fun one. If you had a magic wand and could solve just one problem within the business, what would that be?
Contracting. Just be able to ink a deal with a healthcare organization is a challenge. And there is no shortcuts there. So like we talked about earlier, there's no standard way of doing business with different hospitals, different facilities. And that's something that is, if I could fix that, that would make everyone's life much easier.
Of course, and that makes a lot of sense. And to wrap up, if people want to connect with you or learn more about what LayerJot is doing, where could they go and how can they connect?
Well, they're welcome to come to our website, layerjot.com, and find me on LinkedIn. Like you said, I'm putting videos and demos of what we do. And if you want to contact me through LinkedIn, it's great because I will have a bit of context who you are, and we can have a great conversation like we met. So it's great.
Of course. And so I'll leave Etay's links in the description. I highly recommend you check out LayerJot and his LinkedIn. It's super informative. It's super cool. I thought it was really cool, but maybe I'm just a nerd, but I like all that kind of stuff. And the incredible things that they're doing in this space. But other than that, thank you, Etay, for your time and insights today, and we'll see you guys in the next video.